Let's get a preview of what to expect. Joining me now is CNBC's Jim Goldman, along with Rick Munson. He is senior analyst for media and technology with the Motley Fool. Also with us is Lee Munson, chief investment officer at Portfolio Asset Management. Let's begin with you, Lee. Let's talk about Google here and what you would be doing ahead of the numbers. What are you expecting out of the quarter?
You know, I'm probably expecting a blowout quarter right now. What I'm really looking for, Maria, I want to see if we can get any news about China and anything that causes the analysts to start to panic. Bottom line is that Google's a solid company. They could lose all that Chinese revenue tomorrow at $150 million. And if it brought the stock down into the 570 range, I want to be a buyer right here. But we sold it this morning. We saw the run up. It hit our price target. I'm looking for a little back off. And then, you know, I think long-term stock goes to 660.
6.06 is the number, Lee. I'm sorry to interrupt. $6.06 a share is the headline number. Anyway, we're not sure if this is apples to apples in terms of the estimate, but 606 is what we're getting on the EPS, and the revenue is $5.06 billion in revenue on Google. Now, the estimate was $4.95 billion. We're getting a revenue for the quarter of $5.06 billion for Google. Lee Munson, your knee-jerk reaction here.
I want to see the net revenue above $5 billion. They did that. I hope the analysts slam it. I hope I can buy it tomorrow at a big discount.
You want to buy it tomorrow? So you think the stock will trade lower, giving you an opportunity to buy at a discount?
Absolutely. You know, I think that you can buy this all the way down to the 540 level. Remember, we're not really concerned with the earnings per share because we know that there could be any type of charge-offs. We don't know what the real numbers are. But that type of headline, off by 54 cents on the EPS, that's going to cause some people to freak out and a lot of traders to bail on the stock. I think it's an opportunity. I think people should get long here. 570s, 555. I think you need to be long this name.
Rick Munson,
so,
tell me how you see it. What are your reactions to these numbers?
Yeah, I still don't believe that 606 until I see it and make sure all the charges are worked out of that number. I'll reserve judgment on that. The revenue number, yeah, I think we all expected it to crack $5 billion. This is a company where it beats analyst estimates. It's missed over the last 2 years as many times as you can count them on a phone number one ring finger. It's that kind of company. You saw it a quarter ago where advertisers were already starting to pay more per click. And Google before that was making up it in volume. This should be a perfect storm for the company, which is why I guess the 606 is a shock. If this is actually the actual earnings number, it would be a bit of a shocker.
The earnings number is 6.76, okay, versus the estimate of 660. Like we said that at the top, that wasn't the headline number. And you're right, it wasn't because it's 676. Let me get to Jim Goldman now because he's going through this report and he has the details behind the actual headline number. 676 is the right number to look at, correct, Jim?
676. The 606 number that you were talking about is the GAAP number. The apples to apples number, Maria, is $6.76. That beats the street by 16 cents. The street was at 660. Now keep in mind that the whisper number was around 676 as well, at least the number that I had been talking about. So Google comes in essentially right in line with the whisper number, but really knocking the cover off the ball when it comes to what the street expectations as far as consensus is concerned. That news on $5.06 billion in net revenue, that is the apples to apples number, excluding those traffic acquisition costs, the TAC. The street was at $4.95 billion for net revenue. Looking down the list here, paid clicks, this is probably the most important metric in measuring Google's growth and health as far as the fourth quarter was concerned. The street was anticipating growth of 12%, which would be a sizable improvement from what this company saw during the fourth quarter as compared to the third quarter. In fact, Google comes in up 15%, much better than expected. Cost per click up 7%. Google Sites revenue a little disappointing there, $4.44 billion. The street was at $4.51 billion. But network revenues also coming up a little light as far as consensus is concerned, $2.04 billion against the estimate consensus anyway of $2.06 billion. Looking here at the hiring line, if I could do some quick math here, it looks like Google added about a little under 800 workers during the quarter, and that might raise some red flags. Is that good news that Google was hiring, or is this an indication that costs might be once again getting a little bit out of line as far as Google spending money? That's going to come up on the conference call, you can rest assured. We're seeing Google sell off just a little bit on this news as everybody begins to work their way through this P&L, but all in all, when you look at these numbers, this is a pretty solid report. We'll see what the company says at the bottom of this hour when they begin the conference call.
Jim, any commentary on China? I mean, I know it wasn't a factor going into the first quarter, but it certainly was a factor during the first quarter. What do you hear? Anything that came out of the report in terms of China? Because that's going to be one of the topics of conversation on the call.
Nothing that I can see here specifically regarding China. Now, remember, this is much more of a diplomatic issue, Maria, because China only represents about 1.5% of Google's overall revenue. So on a diplomatic basis, this is obviously an enormous story. But on a financial basis, on a material basis, it's really not all that important unless we start to see China's backlash extend into Google's other businesses like the Android mobile operating system and partner handset makers who are trying to do business in China but might be dealing with some kind of pressure from the Chinese government because of their relationship with Google.
Right.
Again, that is going to come up on the conference call.
Great perspective there, Jim. Yeah, no, great points. Rick Menares, let me get your take here, because now we know it's $6.76 a share, better than the estimates, and the revenue is above the $5 billion number at $5.06 billion in revenue for the quarter. Would you commit new capital to Google stock right now?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's time to put on the dinner bib and take out, the fork and knife. I think with one thing that Google doesn't put in their numbers, but you can figure it out, by just working the math. If the paid clicks went up 15% and revenue went up higher, once again we have advertisers are paying more, which means that they're valuing more a Google lead than they were, a year ago at this point. So it's just a great report all around, especially now that we got that 606 out of the way.
And real quickly, Munson, does this set the stage for other tech names tomorrow, or is this just a Google story?
No, I think it's going to set the pace. I mean, Maria, it reminds me of 10 years ago when we started talking about whisper numbers. So it gets me very excited, and it reminds me of my youth when I was in my 20s on Wall Street. So I think anything that you do right now, you got to wait for a little bit of dips. There's going to be some shorts that are going to be really in pain tomorrow with Google, and I would say let them pull back, get in there. They're great, solid numbers, but I think ultimately next week we're going to go lower, maybe for a couple of days. Use any 1% dips in technology, even if it's only for the day, and start getting the big names like the Intels, like the Googles of the world. And I say, hey, listen, we're in a bull market, so look for a dip, grip it and rip it.
All right, you're going to be there. You're going to be buying. Thanks, guys. Really great conversation. We appreciate it. And we will see you soon. Rick Menares, Lee Munson. Let me get back to Jim Goldman here. He has more detail. Jim.
Yeah, just really quickly, Maria, one other factoid here as I look down this list here. Google now has $26.5 billion in cash on the balance sheet. This is a company that, with all the different business ventures that it is involved with, including hiring those 800 workers, they added $2 billion in cash to their balance sheet just during the first quarter alone. That's pretty impressive.
Nice. Good number there. All right, Jim. Thanks a lot for that.